Hello, mofos. Check out the chat. See who's kicking it on this 420 TV broadcast of the Mini Ice Age Conversations, courtesy of David DuByne, allowing me to tag along for the conversation. Buried some sunchoke and sweet potatoes today. Good. Grow food. That's the definite necessity in today's world, for sure. Here I am. Just noticed the alien. Must have been my kid joking around with me. Cool. So what'd it be like? If it's supposed to be like what it is. It was like what it was supposed to like, way back when it was already like what it was supposed to be like. You know what I'm saying? It's like fried Crispies in a pan. Can't get no better than that. It's a bowl full of grits and some Kool-Aid, man. You don't know. I know. Hellseeker, hello. Here's your wrench. Welcome to the free speech zone that keeps getting banned. I wonder why. It's because I just say stuff, and evidently some people don't like it. Throw all kinds of terms at me in my emails. What's up, Pyramid 7? Raven Wolf? Blasphemous Buddha? Who else is in here? Rastafarian. Would it be? And the Hellseeker. Cool. I'd like to thank all 6 of y'all for coming out. Just kidding. I keep getting banned, but you notice I'm not a quitter, so here I am again on another live broadcast. The first of many, I hope, if I can be a good boy and stay on the airwaves. I have to be incognito. Or just neat. I don't know. Neato. Woot, woot. Oh, here we go. Now we're in business. Oh, sleeping on it.
Which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David DuByne, creator of the Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age 2015 to 2035 video series. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are on this beautiful blue planet, both subsurface, inner earth dwellers, and those above, inner skies, and in the outer realms of Earth's atmosphere, orbiting above our heads. Good evening. It's been an incredible week. I've learned so much this week in terms of survival in cold conditions. It's been incredibly cold in East Tennessee, and my heat pump broke in the cabin that we're in. So it was running a sliver, but temperatures would get down into the high 40s or low 50s in the house in the evening, but outside it would be 21 degrees. And I highly suggest everybody do this at least once. Turn the heat down or off and let it get completely cold in your house so you know where the warmest places are. Where you know how to stay away from those windows, where you know how to close doors to keep your place a little warmer for a little bit longer. Because in a power down situation and a grid down, that is one of the first things that's going to happen to your house. It's going to get cold. And I learned more about being frozen in a house that had barely workable heat. And do you know how thankful I was that the sun would come out and heat up the side of the house and heat the house, so when I came back in, it would be in the mid 60s. And sleeping in a sleeping bag and trying to get. And here's another thing. You might think, all right, well, I'll just stay in my house and I'll throw more blankets on. You're going to need some different R factor for your back, so heat's not leaking out of you. Because in those kind of situations, you're going to have other people that are going to be at your house too. You're not going to be the only one. So you're going to have to think about people sleeping on the floors or sleeping around other places, cots or whatever. But that heat radiating, now I'm thinking R factor, pads under the sleeping bags. I learned more this week having a breakdown in my breathing in the middle of winter than I think I could have learned. You have to have the experience where you can learn. That's the whole thing about all these transitions we're going through. You have to have the experience so you can learn. Whether it be growing something and that fails and your plants die, whatever, you learned. So beyond all the craziness that we're going to go through tonight, I would highly encourage you to think about if your power shuts off for a few days. Like for myself also, I had lighters in the house, but I couldn't remember where I put them because I'm moving into a new place and everything's discombobulated. It's just the little things. And then I needed to go outside and I had my flashlight in a different bag somewhere else. And I'm like, oh, I got to go back in and get my flashlight. So now I'm starting to think about these instant preparedness things, like putting hooks in my walls with a flashlight on every single wall, and just different things like this. Where's your pair of binoculars? Where's your flashlights? All these kind of things. I learned so much this week by being unprepared, discombobulated, to have a breakdown. And I encourage everybody to mimic that same situation. Turn off the power in your house, turn off the heat in your house, and then see what happens. And just try to live through it for at least a weekend. It'll be a fun exercise. And then take notes and see, where the warm spots are. And so many things to talk about. Ransom, I appreciate you joining me tonight. I know we're going to go through the gamut of news. I've been cutting trees out in my forest, trying to get ready for where I want to put the gardens and trying to open up a little more area so to get more light down for an upper area garden and trying to keep things out of the wind. And I'm glad we have a super big windstorm these last few days, because now I can learn really where the wind patterns are and how would that blow a greenhouse down, or how would it blow trellises down, or what kind of supple plants might get flattened in the wind. These extreme conditions are teaching me so much right now to get ready for these changes and in a quick fashion, because I've had a couple conversations with people and they're like, yeah, we really need to put our food in full production because this is it. This year it comes. Tidal wave upon us. Ransom, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I've been doing my own little farming experiments here. I have a bunch of these plastic buckets outside and all kinds of stuff sprouting because we had some unusually warm weather, but that's over. It's getting cold again. We had like a little 2 days worth of 70 degrees and then back to freezing temperatures.
Is that unusual? Because I was talking to somebody over in Utah just yesterday, and they were saying that thunderstorms, and everybody around there was like, well, this is a little bizarre. Thunderstorms in the middle of winter.
Yeah, we don't usually get thunderstorms in the middle of winter, but ironically, at the beginning of this cold season, when my tomatoes were dying and I was trying to save them outside, there was a snowstorm and one bolt of lightning struck like right above my house, and it made a big old orange flash at the end of it, but it didn't come all the way to the ground. It just stopped at the bottom of the cloud level. It was really bizarre. And then this big old thunder followed it, of course. It was pretty bizarre. So we don't see too much lightning in wintertime around here, unless like there's just some really odd weather coming from one of the Gulfs.
Yeah, and for those of you out there that follow my work on Adapt 2030, I have some new timelines that I'm putting out right now for the intensification of these extreme weather events to continue to amplify. This is it. This year is the rollover year, and if we're already getting these types of extreme cold across so many regions of the planet, thunderstorms and in winter, and just such a mix-up in the jet streams, when we come into this change of season, you're going to start to see and be more prepared than usual. That's all I'm going to say is the extremes are going to get much more extreme. And I can also see with the government overreach and things happening right now to lock down people, it seems that they're going in lockstep. So one for me is validating the other. To know that these natural disasters and the earth slips and landslides, sinkholes, etc., and all these kind of things that are going to start breaking our infrastructure in terms of roads, pipes, bridges, and rail lines is really in earnest starting to ramp up. So at the same time, governments can anticipate shortages, so they're going to try to control the citizens more preemptively. So I'm using it as a gauge with my solar timelines coming out with these extreme earth changes and the amount of government control that's being, put out there at light speed.
You said it. It is at light speed. And I have a whole little list of stories here that reflect how crazy it's really getting. I mean, I've been warning for decades, but here we are. That crazy guy is now right. And starting off with being able to travel anywhere, they're trying to put rules in for just interstate travel right here in the United States, where you'll have to, get tested, and then trying to travel internationally, just like we said at the beginning of this pandemic. You're not going to be able to go anywhere without government approval. And then, the government is, I saw this article right here, man interrogated by the FBI after facial recognition wrongly placed him at the Capitol. So he had a visit to his house, but he didn't do anything. And then we got a lot of laws trying to get slammed through. HR 127 pretty much will end permanently your right to bear arms. And you sent me some crazy stuff too, about just weird stuff there going on with the military. And I also found another one.
Since we're telling tales, we should start with Hansel and Gretel here, shall we not?
Yeah.
We're in the gingerbread house, and here's where we sit. Yeah, the one thing about this grand solar minimum, since the beginning of it, I mapped out in terms of history, every 400 years, it's a significant event and a reset of history. A reset of economy, a reset of government, just the way that society operates. So I just, delved back through history for quite a bit and went back to, say, 2400 BC on these 400-year intervals in the last 6 of them to see what would happen. And routinely, every single one of these, population migration, economic stagnation, collapse, and then a reformation of a new economic system. And then government, collapse as well. That comes up with a new system of governance. So for me, coming into this grand solar minimum and knowing that we could move much faster because we can get on an airplane now, we're not going to load our cart with the oxen. It takes a lot longer to travel across Europe with an oxen cart than it does to get on a train or in a bus or in a car. So I was saying that they're going to lock the planet down, and I didn't know what the fashion that meant, lock the planet down, but that's 1 already out of the 3. Now we're starting to see the economic collapse come in. That's 2 out of 2. And then the last one would be governments completely collapse across the planet, or they let you think they collapsed, and then they institute a new system with them still in control, of course. But there's a morphing into a new way for society. I don't know if it's the cosmic rays that allow the human to think differently, so they have to readjust how the farming techniques here on Earth can be adjusted for the new thinking human, and then they call it a new governmental system. Because there's always a shift with the ages here, with the light from the sun and from the magnetism from the sun. It shifts into a new governance system, but I think that the powers that be know where the mind is going to shift. I think they have all the cycles mapped out, and they know the energy shift, where this resonance frequency is going to reset itself. So they have a new system in place for the new resonant frequency. Locking the planet down, Ransom, you're on it right there. That whole... What you're feeling about that? I don't think I'm ever going to travel again. And I would encourage everybody not to travel, to just say nope and vote with the money.
Well, right now, our last, kind of avenue of freedom of traveling is an automobile. So, if you're not driving yourself now, you're going to have to go through these systems. And I was showing everybody an article that was talking about a new federal police force to enforce the no masker people. You know, I happen to be one of those. I'm sorry if you don't like it. But, you know, maybe we'll get to go to space, but not really. We're already in outer space here. They are locking down the planet at the same time. And I hate to get hokey, but they're pushing this UFO stuff pretty hard. And it's funny that you said since we're telling stories, because I was showing the article right when you said that about the U.S. Navy claiming they have the patents on tech to engineer the fabric of reality. That means make you believe whatever you want to believe, I guess. So the U.S. Navy has patents on tech it says will engineer the fabric of reality. It's UFO patents, right? In this article, they're saying, well, it sounds like science fiction, but the Navy's saying, no, it's legit. We're going to tell you what it sounds like. If you remember, Cheney had an interview one time and he said that exact thing. We'll tell you what reality is. So I think you're going to have to take travel into your own hands. You're going to have to. And then all of a sudden, they're going to tell us, you know what? You can't drive anymore because you have to get an electric car that causes, you know, the use of more fossil fuels to run it. But you're going to have an AI-driven electric car or you won't be able to go anywhere. You might be able to buy special insurance so you can drive a gasoline-powered dangerous machine. If you've ever seen that movie, I, Robot, they were talking about how the gasoline-powered engines were dangerous and banned because they might explode with all that, you know, fossil fuel. And it's really zooming around making plant food, I guess. That's why they don't like the combustion engine, really.
You know, it's interesting you said the reality thing because Biden just come out and talked about appointing a reality czar. You know, and that makes, you know, and here the word czars again. Remember, like climate czar. Who's this this bozo here? Who's the Kerry? Okay, so to put it into context here, this whole czar word ships back again. And, you know, it's a lexicon. Think about the words a czar. You know, obviously it's an elitist aristocrat that has authority over you. It's something czar. Anyway, he comes up. Somebody asks him, why are you flying all these private airplanes when you're the new climate czar and you've been flying all these private miles? And he's like, well, I will offset it because I'm important enough that I have to fly by myself. And if I was there, I would have said, what do you mean offset? Because putting such a dangerous all-ending extinction level event gas in the air, you put the extinction level event, all this gas in the air. I don't care if you offset or not. You put the bad gas in the air, you bad flyer. And they're like, no, we can offset it. So it's not really a threat if you can offset it. Now, is it?
No. It's a managed thing, just like everything else. Did you see this Bill Gates thing about he wants to set up a global alert system so they could tell us when the next pandemic scare is going on and we'll know when to be afraid?
Level alert orange. Didn't they try to do that after 9/11 or they were having like, they would try to give you a different color code for the day or something? I can't remember back that far.
They've been doing that.
I ended up leaving the States after a while and you know, going traveling and whatever. And
that morphed into the
do
COVID.
Some color code thing, to the same thing to try to frighten you by the day. It's red today, be afraid.
Yeah. They did that with the COVID recently, our governor. It's an orange day, a purple day, a blue day. Nobody knows what's going on. They forgot the colors. So you're panicking. Oh my God, is blue bad? Is red bad? I don't know.
Hey man, I'm just going to go for the blue M&Ms and call it a day. Perfect.
So what do you think they mean
back to that thing with
by that?
Go back with the HR bill here.
All right.
I actually ended up spending the time reading every page of that bill I read. Every page. And what's in there is startling in the way that they phrased it. It's not just, okay, a single bill. There's like 55 something things in there. And it's frightening, basically, what's in there. Now, couple it ransom. Now, I'm going to try to put these two together. Remember, maybe like 3-4 weeks ago, I sent you that video where in real time, the AI had identified every single object in the room as a person was walking around with their mobile phone. They could tell you what the material was, and obviously what the material was, and then they could identify the actual object, and then by that they could tell you the weight and the manufacturer and all these things in real time, looking at 40 things in your room. Well, here's where it gets scary, because in that new HR bill here, I think it's 147. If you have a single round of ammunition laying around, like let's say you were cleaning your firearm and you were trying to stack your ammo and get it correct, and then even if you did put it back in the safes and everything was set, they want you to separate everything. So I'll try to explain that in a minute. But let's say you left one round out and it kind of fell on the floor or something, and it fell off the table, and it's even like a 22 round something, and it just skipped and disappeared. One single round that's not in a safe will be a $50,000 fine for each individual round that is not kept correctly in a safe at all times. So the way it's worded is you will never, ever in your life be able to bring the ammo out of the safe, ever, because it'll be out of the safe and it'll be deemed in violation of. Secondly, every firearm will have to be in a different, separate safe in itself, completely away from another, and they will be allowed to come into your house at any one time after you register your firearms to check that your ammo and your guns are kept in different locations, and it has to be a certain amount of feet apart. So I'm wondering, what if you have a real small apartment? Are you going to get two safes, and then because they're only, they're 9 feet apart instead of 12 feet apart, that you've broken federal law, and then here's the thing. This is the scariest thing. Not only do you have to have your firearm locked in a safe, but then you have to have your ammo locked in a different safe. And the way it reads to me is you're never, ever allowed to put those two things together ever again, ever, in violation of federal law, that if you actually insert a round into the firearm, that's illegal. They'll let you have your firearm, they'll let you have your ammo, but you're never allowed to use them in combination, store them together again, ever have them out, basically, ever again. And this is the way, it's such a wishy-washy wording of it, the way, and the fines that go with this are just so unbelievably heavy, like $75,000 per infraction. So let's say you had a small gun safe with 5, let's say AR-15s in it, and they were 1 foot too close to the ammo safe. Well, that would be a $75,000 fine per weapon inside that safe. It's getting borderline ridiculous. And then here's the kicker. You mentioned insurance policy for driving a fossil fuel car, right?
Yeah.
Each individual firearm that you own, they want you to pay an $800 per year insurance policy on it. That is per firearm, $800 per year. And then not only that, but you have to get the psychological test, but then you have to have 4 other family members get psychological tests also. So you, the firearm owner, can get your firearm. 4 other people have to do psych tests to prove that you're not nutty. And then what's going to say that they don't just classify you as an extremist because you say you want to have a firearm, and then they just lock everybody up under, and then a doctor can actually do it at that point and say, we feel that they're a threat, and then whoosh, then everything's taken away. And this is where it gets into the bizarro world where I can't even believe what I read. By the end of the thing, I'll just shut my computer and go, I don't even want to deal with this thing.
That sounds like altered reality at its finest. Basically, it doesn't take much. Just from what you said, what they're saying is you do not have the Second Amendment, and you do not have the right to defend yourself, because it's an obvious basic idea of common sense that you would have to have said things completely together and assembled with all of its parts, including the things that go in it. You know what I'm saying? So it'd have to be all together, or it's a useless deterrent or protection device. So they're basically saying that is over. No more. Matter of fact, we'll just keep them at the government armory, so you don't even have to worry about storing them. We'll just take them down there to the government armory, and you could come and you could beg us if you want to go hunting or something, and we can tell you, well, we had to destroy those because we changed the law, but you can have this one-shot one if you pay a big, giant fee to borrow your own thing. Completely ludicrous. Bizarro world.
Yeah, and here's the thing. And here's another thing. Any magazine or clip that's over 10 rounds, or at 10 rounds, I should say, is considered illegal because it holds 10. Now, if it held 9, that'd be fine. But you got to realize, even this little Caltech I have here has 10 rounds in it, plus 1 in the chamber. So even having a little small Caltech for self-defense, everything out on the market is now deemed illegal because it has a 10-round magazine.
That's the goal. It's to outlaw it until it's just gone.
Capacity magazine is now illegal pretty well if this thing passes. And if it does, I would definitely not be going to the registry, let's say that.
Yeah. I have some interesting paperwork I found from the VFW from 1947. And it talks about some pretty patriotic things that in today's world would be deemed.
What's the VS? Well, Rance only said, what's the VSW? Never heard of it.
The VFW is the Veterans of Foreign Wars. It's the biggest organization of veterans in the U.S. It was founded after World War I to help returning troops deal with integrating back into society and stuff, even though they weren't allowed to say that they had a problem because they didn't have, PTSD. They either had shell shock, and then in World War II, you weren't even allowed to, whine about nothing because that's just not how they did things in the Great Generation. But it's pretty bizarre what they're saying, I guess, in today's world. It says that, for after all, we're members of a Veterans of Foreign Wars, and he pointed out that they should have a new membership drive, and they're talking about the 3,000 missing people in China that were vets that they have their names to, but they start talking about, that they need to start training and arming themselves and being prepared to back up the Army, Navy, Marines, and other branches of the service. Our unpreparedness at this time, he stressed, is dishonorable. We're at a point that we should get behind the National Guard and the reserves of all these branches of the military. And it just goes on. They're talking about, how there just ain't a possible way forward depending on military to protect you. And that every citizen, every vet should be training. And they go through the meetings. And this is just a patriotic, kind of Masonic veterans group. But it's got started a long time ago. And I was just going through all these pages of patriotic material that in today's world would be considered terrorism.
How times have changed.
These are.
And I sent you that article before we started that for some reason they want every branch of the military to stand down while they. The gleaning out of the articles and the information I've read is they want the military to stand down to go to a non-readiness, zero functional, and then interview every single person in the military and decide who's too patriotic and who will serve under orders of Biden, and then remove everybody else who's still too patriotic and then restart the service again. Because they're worried that people that are still there, which is an enormous amount, won't uphold unconstitutional orders or fire on our own citizens. And this is starting, did you have the date on that? I sent you the article here. Let me see.
Yeah, it's February 4th, so that's today.
Yeah, it just came out today, and it was such the, article.
Yeah, that's crazy. The idea of it is ridiculous in the first place.
Yeah, the idea is incredibly ridiculous, and that is, like you said, being unprepared, because they're trying to purge. Okay, it's a full-fledged communist purge happening in the military, And the purging communists are the ones who are calling for the stand down. It's actually going to take place in the next 60 days. They don't give you an exact date. So it says here, quote, each military branch will schedule a stand down to allow each service to have, quote unquote, needed discussions on extremism in the ranks, end quote. And what they are asking is, what is extremism? Oh, of course it exists in the United States. It's so deeply ingrained in the United States. Everything's now, how did it flip so quickly into, here's the definition of extremism. For during this purge here, this is the definition of extremism. They're looking for, in military personnel, to have them expelled, or however they're going to remove them from the military. Anyone who is a patriot or a constitutionalist, members of the armed forces who might refuse an illegal order that is unconstitutional. Basically, how they think is the new battleground.
Yeah.
And then here, let me continue with that. Yeah, and such members of the military have to be purged. So I don't know really how much ground that will gain in a real world scenario here. Because everything's happening at lightning speed. And the reason I keep bringing up this lightning speed, the way it's happening, A, I understand they lost 4 years because Hillary didn't get in office. But B, these earth changes, this magnetic field coupling and intensification is going to come so fast, it's going to be a 300-mile-per-hour wind gust coming through that you don't see, and it's suddenly here. And the earth changes that are coming this summer, especially when we transition seasons, I think this will be the first year that we're going to see the extremes, maybe not plasma displays in the skies this year, but something very strange and unusual to the point that it'll spook the populace this way come, this year, naturally. And I'm really very convinced now that this military control and governmental control and social media control and all this kind of control is directly related to how intense these earth changes are going to be starting right now. So for me, with the intensity they're ramping everything up on the control side, means that I'm looking for a super gigantic, unbelievable uptick in the amount of earth changes that's going to shock the psyche of the world.
What about hungry bellies? I was just showing over an argument of 4 Federal Note Reserve pieces of paper. The majority of the Kroger's staff quit. So they're going to have to close 25% of their grocery stores, So there's one less option of food, and you're going to see more and more of this for different reasons. Companies replacing their employees with robots. And then people are going to have problems with the customers when things start being short on the counters. That's when people start getting a little, snide and, you're always out of this, and they get mad because they don't get their favorite thing. Sooner or later, people aren't going to want to deal with it because they'll be accusing the stores and the employees of hoarding the food when in reality, they're just not getting that much anymore. Stuff like that's going on all over the place. At this point, there should be no reason that you don't have backup food. That's just something that everybody's going to have to eventually need. And you know what? Even if you didn't use it, ain't that wonderful? But I don't think so. I think you're going to have to use it.
Yeah, and I keep coming back again with these new series of videos I've been doing with more live talks.
Yeah.
About going to your local farm co-op, which is in every single county across the United States. Every county has one. And going in there and buying 50-pound bags of winter wheat, hard red winter wheat. That's the stuff they grind to make flour, but they grind it in a factory and they charge you like 8 times higher price for their favor of grinding you some flour. And I'm like, wait a minute, why don't you get a hand ground, grain mill or an electric one? Buy the 50-pound bags. There's white, there's soft white wheat. There's hard red winter wheat. You got barley. You could probably do sorghum in that as well. You know, you can use millet, and rye is another one, age old. And you can make your own flours to make your own breads, pastas, and different things. This is the way you should also be thinking. Because people might be terrified that the store runs out of flour, but I would be saying, oh, I don't care. I have 200 pounds of hard red rennet wheat in 50-pound bags that I could sprout for wheatgrass, heavy nutrition. And what I don't eat after I cut that layer of green grass off, I can throw to the chickens out back. And they love that root structure. So there's so many options here of grinding your own flour. Now, really, that's the way we're going to have to start thinking is pioneering lifestyle, bulk buying, and doing some of the processing that you relied on a factory to do, that you're going to have to do it in your home.
Reality's changing on people fast. I was reading an article yesterday, or actually it was the last couple days. There's a giant number of Cubans that happen to be right south to me across the border, and they're waiting to come in the United States. I don't know why they're waiting. It's not like a migrant train exactly. Most of them are Cubans, but there's been a series, and I've been talking about this for years, really, that the idea of a conventional style war in the North American continent becomes ever increasingly possible with weapons manufacturing in Mexico, which is a socialist country through and through now, through its management. And we've been seeing a big number of murders along the border of migrants, but also strange stuff like people from Iran and, you know, the Middle Eastern countries that have histories are showing up at our borders. But besides that, I was looking at another one where they were talking about how people were getting shot in Mexico still to this day over avocados. And you wouldn't think that that would be something that they would be killing each other over. But there's already a group of people telling people when, how they're going to be farming. So there's a little more to just farming and prepping, because there are going to be bands of well-armed people and just plain crazy stuff. Like, here's an article right here about people disputing having to shovel their snow, and it turned into a murder-suicide. I mean, I've been seeing ever more bizarre articles in the news. And then when I see this thing, and I'm going to go back to it, the Navy's saying, don't worry about it. We have patents that will engineer the fabric of your reality. So, I mean, like, to what extent do they mean by designing our reality? If we're locked up and we're not allowed to grow food, and you're not allowed to have people over, and you're not allowed to talk to people, and you're not allowed to even show your face, what are we doing? I mean, and I wanted to get into this. I don't remember if I talked to you about it when we first started doing shows, but I kept pointing out that I saw these random and, you know, very rare articles about the COVID and male testicles, about it hiding in there, and it was going to, reduce fertility rates by a lot. And then I see more of these articles about the same thing. It's the underreported side effect of the real coronavirus that's out there. Now, they've overblown how they've treated society in an overblown Orwellian police state of medical nonsense, in my opinion. That's just an opinion. But they're talking about it now more and more, how a large portion of the population is just going to find out within the next 2 or 3 years that they are totally infertile and sterile through different avenues of things going on right now. And I'm sure you know it's been plummeting in the Western world for some time. Not only the birth rate, but the fertility in men and women's fertility. So we're in a whole new era of weirdness. And if you've ever been into the mathematics of population, you'd know that we were about to hit this plateau of population anyway because of the age of our society. A certain number of people were between this age range. And it seems like right in the last year, we've accelerated that plateau. And people just start reproducing at the same rate. And everybody thinks the world's overpopulated. But in truth, it's about to be depopulated real fast from a number of different scenarios going on concurrently.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And it seems that the older population is the one they want to get rid of fastest and not allow the older generation to communicate with the younger generation to pass on the ideas, the ideals, the common sense, the possible tricks that they had used to escape hardship or whatever, because a lot of older people in the United States immigrated from other countries in this last couple generations, especially after World War II, and the atrocities and horrors that they'd seen, and they were able to escape out during that whole tumultuous period of the 40s and 50s and late 30s. Older people who you want to talk to, they know a lot of tips and tricks to keep you alive. They have a lot of common sense because they lived through a bunch of the BS. They've seen an enormous amount of overthrows of governments with communists coming in, and they can teach the younger generation to beware, look out, and here's a way you can survive. And you notice how that entire generation has been locked up where they can't even communicate with younger kids. They can't communicate with their own grandkids. They want them completely walled off from society because they're afraid of their thoughts passing into the younger or median generations here, because they are the last bastions of common sense, hope, and understanding what the real world was like before this fake reality is. They're terrified of that. At least they're terrified of that knowledge being passed from the elderly down to the young. And look what's happening. Got to give them the jab in the old folks' home first. And look at the number of people dropping like flies after they get that. It's a coordinated effort to erase that knowledge out of our society as fast as humanly possible. First, to cordon it off. It's almost like a siege. You block it in, you block it off, you block off the city. You camp outside and you wait for those people to run out of supplies. And then you offer, oh, we'll come in and we'll get you your supply as long as it's a jab, just quickly, one arm over here, and you'll be able to return to life normal and you can see your grandkids again. But it seems that there's an enormous, unbelievable correlation of when they get the jab as to how quickly they pass. It's truly mind-boggling that this is allowed to happen in our country, and it's not just ours; it's a global thing to remove the older population. And again, if you're this older population that's in nursing homes, go try to get one of them out. Go try to get one of your grandparents out of a nursing home. You won't be allowed to. Even if you say, we're going to take care of them, I don't care about the COVID. They're coming to live on our farm. Forget it. We're taking them out of here now. They're going to say no.
Yeah.
They're in there for life. They've been in house arrest for the rest of their life. Wherever they stay is where they stay. They're not allowed to go out or be brought out. That's the scariest thing.
Yeah, it is.
Terminal.
And you know what's really worse than that is they slandered them first. That's what's been going on. And it's continuing with this thing that you were talking about with the military. What they're doing is slandering people that actually like their own country. You can't be patriotic without being kind of a nationalist. You got to love your own country in order to be patriotic. And you can tell by our new administration that that's not a goal of theirs. Actually, their goal is world government. And they're pretty open about it.
Not my president, man. Not my president. Oh, you can't say that. You're not allowed to say that. Oh, that was the rallying cry for 2016, 2017, 18. Not my president, not my president. Now, as soon as you say, not my president, oh, you can't say that for Biden. How dare you? Globalists, yeah. Why are they? It's so in your face right now. And every single facet that you look across, it's all so fictitious and it's all just so blatantly out there that everything's a hoax and a lie and a rigged system. And they're just like dangling in front of your face going, ha, 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 ha. It is. Now, what are you going to do? We're going to steamroll over this whole globalist agenda on you, and there's nothing you're going to do because you weaklings are never going to stand up. And they're taunting at the moment to show that, yeah, look, none of you are going to stand up. Nothing's ever going to happen. Y'all are, no, you're just going to take it. Nothing's ever going to happen. As soon as people will go into Wall Street in a group and, oh, you can't do that. So whatever happens with mass organization of individuals is going to be like, oh, you can't do that. The minute a movement becomes popular, it's going to be quelled before it even really gets that popular. There's going to be all these new rules and regulations. More than like 1,000 people get on something that's going to be considered a threat. Watch it. Because even when I was working in China back in the day, I was wondering why everybody talked so loud, and I was told that more than 4 people gathering in a group was deemed subversive and plotting against the government. So if there were 5 people around, you had to scream and yell so everybody that walked within earshot of you could hear your conversation, so they didn't think you were plotting against the government. And they brought it down into only groups of 4 people could be together. So we're starting with the Wall Street Bets people, 8 million people online. By the end of this, it's going to be 4. And you can already see where it's going.
What if your family has 5?
You know, we're learning through history. You got to do something. This got to stop right here.
What if your family has 5, David? What do you do then? Somebody has to always shut up?
One of them would have to actually leave the house, and they weren't allowed. And that was the whole thing about, if you did that, you had to invite one of the Red Guard in your house to live and stay with you, or in the village with you. And there would be a contingent. So let's say there were 10 families, and each family had like 10 kids, because they had a lot of kids back in the day, right? So Mao was like, to have as many children is glorious, and they even called that, they gave awards to women who had 8 or more babies as like Inxiong Mama, which means like a hero mother. It's called Inxiong, like a hero. And they had a little thing, and if you had 6, 8 children, you got an award from the state, because what they thought, they were going to war with America. So they needed all the babies they could possibly get. So the women were encouraged to have endless amounts of babies. But then the war with America didn't occur, and then you saw the overpopulation, and that's when the one-child policy came in, and they're like, okay, no more 8 babies, 1 now. Okay. But in these households that were the older generation, in Mao Zedong's Red Guard revolution kind of thing, this Cultural Revolution, those super big families had to have cadre members living in the villages with them to make sure that there was no subversion. And if not, brought into the house to live in the house, plentiful guards. And I think it was, they have like 10 houses and 100 people, and they would have 10 cadre members living in the village with them to make sure that nobody was up to funny business out in the countryside. Now, some people accepted it, and, closer up into, I'm not going to even say Beijing, but once you get to the Yellow River and cross, probably like Chongqing, and that was the last they accepted it, because once they tried to push this stuff out into Sichuan and Yunnan province, those cadres disappeared in the evening. Never just seen from again. And it happened several times where they'd send new contingents out, because it worked, in the center of the country or in the south or up near Beijing. It worked. They had communications. They could ask for backup. They could report on the cadres, whatever. But out in west, where they were like, hell no, those cadres would get sent in at like the groups of 10 to go into villages, and they would disappear in the night. And not a scrap of clothes found, and then, it would be the second group that went in, never to be found again. And it happened again and again, not just in one region in Sichuan or Yunnan, but it also, if you get up further north of Lanzhou, up that way. And then they quit going because they were terrified to go out there. And they couldn't get anybody to go out west because they knew that that was what happened. So the Cultural Revolution never really took such a big stronghold out west. But you can see the same thing happening. They limited the amount of groups of people who could come together because they were terrified of the sharing of an idea and an organization growing from that. So the online discourse is the reason that this is all happening with the cutting of the lines of communication. Because they don't want you organizing online, because they realize that everybody knows it's so illegitimate, so corrupt, so rigged right now, that it is becoming a movement across the globe of people waking up that I never thought would wake up and going, damn, there's a huge problem right now. What is going on with all this? And a lot of people are asking a lot of questions that never ask questions before. And in the eyes of the globalists, that needs to stop immediately. Immediately. Like, I would give it a few more months, and you won't be allowed to organize anything online. And then after that, it'll come down to the actual physical person. But then they started with the older people first. And you could just see how these whole layers are getting put in. Communist playbook in action right now.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. And actually, I got 2 things. We're coming up on the hour here. So I wanted you to tell me, kind of, because I didn't get it, this Greta Thunberg thing. What's going on with her? But then after that, I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on somebody that got to live up close in a society like that. When you came back to the States, and now it's starting to look like you may have barely just outrun that future of government for the entire world. I mean, like, this is the last place. Where would you go from here? And then let's, talk about some fantasy when we come back. I have a bunch of articles lined up about space and how they're trying to kind of brainwash people into thinking, don't worry, we're going to get to go out there, but not really. But the first thing, though, this Greta Thunberg thing, I don't even think I understood what the trip here is. So she's in trouble of some kind?
Okay, so, the Indian farmer protests going on at the moment. I mean, this is a make or break for India. The farmers are actually talking about not growing food, except for their families this year, to starve the country. And, they're like, I'm sorry, we're going to have to do this. We're just going to grow enough food for our own families, and the rest of you are going to starve in this country, because until that government changes these policies, we're only going to grow enough for our own families to eat. We're not going to grow any extra, and we're not going to let anybody use our land to grow extra, and you're going to starve. So talk to Modi about it. So the whole thing's going on, and the farmers are demanding more rights in the way they sell the food. And, the government was trying to be all coy and like, hey, we're going to let you, the little tiny small farmer, sell directly to a Fortune 500 company. And they're like, wait a second, that Fortune 500 company offered us 80% less than market value. They're like, well, that's just the way they work. That's just the way they operate. Before they had the collective bargaining and the co-ops, if you will, to sell onward, and they got a higher price, although they were still getting raked over the coals by the middle people, and that's what they wanted change from about 4 years ago, was the way that the farm gatekeepers, if you will, from the farmers to the wholesalers that loaded it on trucks and then took it to cities, those people, they call them the farm gatekeepers or the middlemen, would rake them over coals as well and give them way below market value price, but they would only give them 40 or 50% below market value. The corporate fives coming in to buy directly from the farmers are giving them 80% less than market value. So they're like, wait, we wanted those scammy middlemen because they gave us 30% more than you Fortune 500 companies are giving us, direct buying. And this is where, and then they're like, wait, you guys got to repeal that law because you forced all the middle people out, and now you've forced us into the hands of only selling to these Fortune 5s. So, who won on that? Of course, the globalists. So all these protests are going on over in India, and if you haven't been watching the news, it's just the most incredible thing. They forced the army off the Red Fort and made them jump down 30-foot embankments, and it was just the craziest videos you've ever seen. I was shocked. I had to watch it a couple times. It was so bizarre and unusual. So anyway, Greta Thunberg here, she was receiving orders on how to facilitate more discord and discontent and push for human rights and all these other issues for the Indian farmers against the national government. And that's great as a one-girl individual. But oops, Greta, she put the whole toolkit from their organization as an organized, top-down force against the Indian government as, well, a radical extremist, because she had a full toolkit, and oops, she put it up on Twitter by accident. Well, a lot of people who follow everybody's accounts, they screen grab it. They have that auto screen grabbing software, and it grabs everybody's tweets that come up. Well, she was only supposed to send it to her people, not put it on a public tweet. Oops. Yeah. So then here's the whole thing. I'll read you a couple. So and then in the pack of a call to action pack here, they even had like a whole list of to-dos, like the urgent action. We're going to start a tweet storm on the 4th and 5th between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. And then it said, see attached docs in the briefing doc and the Zoom calls that we'll join. And it was this whole list of bullet points, just like we're seeing the radicalization of America. It was a radicalization of India project through her cadres and whatever groups and affiliates that were getting this information, which was a huge email list, by the way. And they followed everybody's emails, and they know who an enormous amount of the players are now that are trying to destabilize the Indian government through the protests. And it just goes on and on. And then it even says, if you didn't get these calls to action, get to your local representative. And then they had this whole thing on how to organize on-the-ground actions. And then let me see what else here. And then they had whole lists and documents of supposed posts. And then it went through step by step on how to put a post out, and they've already pre-written all these posts. And then they even have like quote unquote celebrity and influencer person. Here, choose this. And then they gave you like a list of 50s to just copy in there, like Elon Musk, at XYZ, at Draghi, at Hillary Clinton or whatever. And the post was already written for them. So that, where they had this whole thing of post and then repost and then share and then repost, and then they had this entire list of people working together from all these media outlets in India. Even 10 Downing Street was on there, and Boris Johnson implicated in this thing along with the United Nations. This is going to go huge and far. So the Indian government was like, you are trying to overthrow our Indian government by organizing outside. Okay, there's an arrest warrant for you right now.
Okay. So now I get it. So basically,
and criminal conspiracy charges have been filed against her and everybody included on these email lists for trying to destabilize the Indian government right now, today. That is I can't believe she's so stupid to put that thing out there. You're trying to destabilize the government, and oops, by accident, I put it in a public Twitter feed. Oh,
maybe she was.
That girl's got a few screws.
Maybe she was tired of being a little puppet and did it on purpose. Like, oops, I'm only an 18-year-old little girl. No, actually, so basically, her and her communist friends started trouble with a nuclear nation and got caught doing it. And a bunch of people got beat up. I was looking at the, the feed. So people died. In other words, how dare you? People are dying. And indeed they were.
You sound just like her.
Yeah, it's crazy. So basically, they got caught trying to topple a nation through fake reality campaign, which is something they've been doing to us for a long time.
Yeah, it's organized online, already pre-scripted, pre-shared contacts for a movement forward, as the arrowhead, as they call it, for groups to get each other to fight against groups and to single so many people out with like millions of tweets asking Modi or focusing on it. But here's the thing: all of these tweets were pre-written. So now they're just going to be bounced across each other. And they even highlighted in yellow where you could substitute your own word inside the tweet to make it seem more authentic, like you wrote it and it wasn't just a repeated bot tweet.
Chatterbot.
And that's the scariest thing. And I'm looking at this going, you know what? This is happening in America too.
Absolutely it is.
And we're going to take a break here. 2 minutes and 2 seconds. I'm your host, David DuByne, along with Ransom Godwin, 420 TV. Tonight, Ransom, you got to come back and tell us what YouTube channel you're streaming from live right now so they can join us live.
Smoke break time for all you in the chat room there. Oh, wait.
find the live stream? How can they find your graphics along with what we're talking about tonight?
Well, I should be under the search engine as I manipulate it again. 420 TV, Freedom is Films. To be able to find me on YouTube, maybe. You never know,
because there's never any interference, and the algorithms are always correct, and everything you search for online pops up the way it should always. So I don't know why they would have any trouble finding some controversial subjects that you talk about on your channel, huh? It's pretty much out there in the open for everybody to find so easily.
I haven't even said anything lately. In the last 2 channels, I was being good. I didn't even, have too many news programs. They just don't like my music videos even. I got banned for just pictures and other people's words.
Hey, by the way, I encourage everybody out there to go ahead and listen to some of the tunes that Ransom puts together. It's some amazing work music and just good, solid quality music. Taking old tunes and putting some solid beat to it and overlaying, and yeah, quality stuff, man.
I lost my graphics. Yeah, no, it's not bad. If I do say so myself.
Well, that's a skill too, to blend on, mix all that music together and, put the graphics in there and, take an older tune and mix it in with some high powered riffs and, some beat and a little, I wouldn't say exactly techno, but for sure house beats overlaid with some of the older tunes that we remember in our lives with a faster pace to it. Yeah. Like the Who overdubbed with some fast pumping, house music and mixed in with that with a repeating riff on it. Pretty sweet. You could work to that. Just repeat it. Put it on a loop and go to work, and I'll see you in about 3 hours after the beat kicks off. You know what I mean?
Right. So what are we going to do? We keep talking about how we're going to live through this, new phase in reality that we're going in. And I've been thinking about it, and I know as a peasant, I have to stay here on Earth. But when I go through the news, I see this stuff like America's new vision of astronauts. I mean, there's like tons of articles pumping the idea that we're all going to space. Us, China, Russia, the US, the whole world, we're all going out there. We're going to live on Mars. We're going to live on the moon, and they keep on doing this. And then I'm watching the reality of it, and I'm showing this starship come crashing back down to the Earth and blowing up. And then, Biden, of course, is trying to say that there ain't going to be too much space during his administration. But all of the other articles across the board are starting to lean you into the direction of accepting space as a bigger part of your life. And we're being locked in ever more and more. And then at the same time, they're telling us that, no, don't worry about it. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to go out in space. Don't worry about the fact that we said we're going to create your reality for you, but be very afraid of aliens. They're going to come. And when they do, you need to stay inside between 5 o'clock and 10 o'clock when your overlords, the Anunnaki, walk through town, and they're not expecting any pot shots, from you darn patriots out there with your pebble throwers. Now think about that. They're conditioning us, and it's probably not aliens. It's probably just some elite people that want to have you ever see that movie where the guy eats the perfect meal and then he says, I need you to bring me the cook. And they're like, why? He said, because I'm going to kill him. Nobody else should ever eat this perfect meal that I just enjoyed. And the elite are a lot like that. They want the whole planet to themselves, like literally. But they don't mind having a few peasants around. And that's the way it seems to be. Like they're trying to brainwash people into like back in the ancient times where kings and priests demanded worship as if they were gods, even though they were just earthly men like you and me.
Yeah, because Earlier I mentioned farming techniques on the Earth, and I keep coming back to this, and I'll never shake this thought as long as I live. I watched the movie Jupiter Ascending, and after watching that movie, that bent my reality as to the way the possible true workings of this Earth and our solar system are. And you mentioned it. Why would we go to space? We're already in space. See, they've conditioned us so much that we're just on a rock on our feet and we need to go to space, but our Earth is hurling through space along with the rest of our solar system. But the movie Jupiter Ascending was about the quote-unquote overlords or the masters or whatever you might want to call them. There's been names through history, and the money masters is a branch of that for today. But their main base and their main home was on Jupiter, and the Earth was a farming colony. Not only us as humans were farmed for, as you say, compliance, to do tasks for those who didn't want to get their hands dirty, for a better word, but also to create food and sustenance to deliver back to Jupiter. And the whole movie really made sense. And now it could have taken on an inner Earth form as well, where there's been so many stories about societies that have their own power sources on the inner Earth. But then we come back to this whole UFO thing again, which is most interesting. Electrogravitics. So that rocket explosion that you saw would never happen in the real world because you would be using electrogravity craft instead of fired rocket engines to move anywhere. Go back to World War II and people were experimenting with this. Von Braun, yeah, he was doing the rocket engine, but fast forward to 1960s, Dr. Brown, electrogravitics. This was weightless air travel, silent, and then here, get it again. This is how it ties into the UFO. When it spins in opposite rotation on the discs, there's a charge to it. That's why they see these things glowing in the sky. You have to as a gasoline engine, you have to off gas. That's why you have a tailpipe. Those gases that are burnt need to be off-gassed from your engine. Well, these electrogravitics craft, if there is such a thing as off-gassing, they have to release an overcharge, and that overcharge is what we call electricity. And with smaller units, you could have free power that would power a house, a neighborhood, in perpetuity, indefinitely, in a small little tiny box that would never break down. And you would just start it, and you would have no input, no electricity bills. And think about how that would work if you could make semi-tractor trailers weightless, and if you could make other things weightless as well. How our world would be very different, where we would have no transportation costs, we'd have no electrical input. So whatever you wanted to do with irrigation or metal smelting or whatever would cost nothing, it'd be free. And this is where the whole thing kind of blends in back to your whole, why are they releasing all the... Think about the electromagnetic changes in the human brain. Like I said, every grand solar minimum, they need to come up with a new structure for the economy, a new governance model. And I think coming into this new change in this grand solar minimum, they're going to have to give free power because the old fossil fuel burning way won't work, literally won't work after this shift comes up. So that's this whole push into green energy and everything. It's get you to go there in the mind, but when you arrive there, they still won't have coal burning power plants. It just won't work. So I think they're going to move the world over to this free energy and then a slow drip. They could talk green energy till they're blue in the face. But imagine if that's kind of the intermediate step to get you to think that there's something different, that you could already get used to change on a power source. And then suddenly, the UFOs, they all have these these anti-gravity devices also create free electricity. Wow. You only have to buy one for $18,000 for your house. You never have to buy power again. Get one at GE, babies. They're going to shift into electrogravitics power discharge.
Do you think that's when they will push the idea that they need all this money now because now that we're flying these things, we have friends out there and they're warlike, so you need to stay home. I mean, what do you think about that, really? We finally are at a point where I would agree that this world government is finally coming to fruition. with this new administration. There's nothing left to stop them in this, as Kissinger said, a capitalist communist society, not unlike China. And that's because they want to merge with China, because China, it has the biggest navy in the world, some of the most determined people in the world, and a scary, scary overlord government that we're designing ours after. And if anybody doubts that, I don't know what you're seeing or what la la land you're in, but that's what I'm seeing.
And having seen that whole blend of systems when I was working in China, it's functional to a point, but it's complete compliance and you'll be allowed to work and make money. The minute you have an original thought and go off base on changing any kind of structure of the government, the economy, the corruption, the top down, you're wiped out. You're a complete threat, and there's nobody there to help you. You're just wiped out completely.
So you think they're going to try to sell us on Star Trek? I mean, this friendly version, here, we're finally going to let you explore a little bit, but we got to reduce the population down, and you guys got to go to a credit system. And the only reason, because Star Trek, the only reason it worked is because in the future they had free energy. So you didn't have to work for a living. They didn't have a monetary system anymore. And everybody was free to, chase their dreams, invent things in this magical utopia of what was obviously a socialist group, which was the Federation of Planets, or the UN. It's a Fabian socialist designed thing, but they put a smiling face on it, and that they're the good guys, and these unique aliens out there with their own, views, interpretations, religions, and all of that stuff. They were the bad guys, even though the the Federation was friendly and accepted everyone as long as you assimilated, which is funny. And then they put the Borg out there. That was the next level of transhumanism, of this super elite, awesome, perfect communist Borg society, top-down pyramid, which is what they want right now. And I think those Georgia Guidestones were no joke. I think that's a real thing. So how do you feel about pretty much showing up in the U.S. just in time to watch it convert to what you left?
Maybe that's the reason I was born, to go through such a thing and help that transition not manifest.
Amen.
Yeah, because you brought up a good thing. So imagine the Federation being the global governance that we understand as the globalists, quote unquote. But then you have it even a more pure version of that, which was the Borg. But then the globalists would be fighting the Borg and the transhuman. So you got to think about, this transition phase into a global government's going to get everybody, or try to at least. I think they're going to find a lot more pushback than they anticipate here, of compliance on one level where the entire world starts to comply, and it's one single person can tell the world what to do, and it turns into that. But the Federation fighting the Borg, then, this whole transhumanist thing versus the global government thing is exactly what that equates to. And at what point do the globalists give up their power to become transhuman? Because they got to realize, too, they're going to lose their sovereignty by becoming transhumans. I mean, AI is going to control them indefinitely as well. So in a realistic form, you got to tell me that these guys really want to put computer chips in their brains and be taken over by a non-sentient computer algorithm program, artificial intelligence, that can then control their body, mind, and what they can do and think and say, and how they can act, and they can terminate their life at any time. And they're going to put that in their bodies? I don't think they might talk one thing, but I really highly doubt that they might talk up the transhumanist thing.
I think they're doing it.
I really kind of doubt that they're going to interface with the AI, because that AI would exterminate all humanity, and they would be one of the ones that would be exterminated as well. So I don't get it.
That's weird, because Elon Musk pushes the idea of the Neuralink in opposition to AI, acting like putting a Wi-Fi, a Fitbit in your head is not opening yourself up to the AI, which seems on its face ridiculous. But think about that. I was joking with my kid just, I think last month, and I made him watch Johnny Mnemonic, which was supposed to be January 17th, 2021, which was like the day I think we watched it. And in the movie, you know, if you've seen it, he's smuggling information in his brain in a brain chip, and he has to plug in and download it and get it out of his head, or he'll not be able to put his own memories back in there. And they were already living in this weird society where everything was falling apart, but the super elite were living a good life, and it was a complete transhuman communist takeover of the planet. And that's what he was hiding from. You know, he was trying to get some code somewhere. And I laughed at how good they predicted the future. You know, it's still Hollywood and sci-fi looking, but if you take that filter off, you realize the main facts are all facts right now. It's no longer science fiction. It is science fact. It's just not all these cute characters. And it's weird that you know, that same actor is the one that plays in The Matrix, which is a similar, you know, dichotomy of, you know, everybody connected to the AI. And then you got the Pope and other people openly talking about worshiping an AI so that they can mix the religions and make it fair and make it non-offensive. Yeah, we're at that time right now. So everybody should clap their hands. We're not going to space, but Elon Musk may take you into another dimension, and others like him, by implanting devices in your head that will connect you to the World Wide Web. And everybody knows that that's super ultra controlled now through algorithms. So do you want your, you know, when you get censored, for it to happen inside of your head, right when you're thinking the thought? Because that's where you're going. I mean, it's pretty obvious. They got a chimpanzee playing video games mentally, and now they're going to sell it to a new generation to play games and just sit in your home. And you might as well, because, you know, there's aliens outside and there's a super virus, and you got to wear 10 masks and barely get any oxygen, but that's okay. You can buy some medical supplies and get oxygen. Might as well, because carbon taxes and the future of the green movement that's going to be along with that as an excuse to eradicate people. Because people are bad. We fart, you know, and we drive cars. And I'm sure the cavemen were overusing their SUVs the last time the cycle ended of Ice Age.
Well, you forgot the ground up worm shake as well for breakfast.
Oh. Yeah, that's on the, was that the Snowpiercer movie where they're eating the bugs.
Yeah, that was a great movie. You know, that really, whoever did that movie, I forget who the director was, nailed it on the segmentation of society and, yeah, hitting that bugs with the kind of gooey, like jello goo or whatever. Mm. It was ground up insects. They knew it from there, right in the middle, huh? They knew it.
Get your protein bar. Only $39.95.
Yeah, because it reminds me a little bit what you're talking about, that last statement about the uber elite living in their kind of castles and with the mix with the AI and everything else is, you know, outside and falling apart down here, kind of like Elysium but worse.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this guy, Bitcoin Future Traveler. Guy came back and he was like, I forget which year he was from. It's all about Bitcoin and the run up in Bitcoin. And he's like, you got to destroy Bitcoin. You can't let it go forward. And he was saying the price predictions of each year that the prices would be for the Bitcoin. And he's been 100% correct up to this year, which he's calling $100,000. And then in 2 years, he's calling $1 million. But then one interesting thing is he says right about that 23 period, 2023, anybody who had any type of Bitcoin at all, they would go to these places called the citadels. And these are areas of extreme wealth where if you had any Bitcoin at all, that you would be allowed in to live and spend out your days and spend your Bitcoin inside the citadel. Well, the rest of the world collapsed outside of it into this Neanderthal kill fest out here, or whatever it would be, lack, shortage, starvation, diseasey kind of thing. And even a tenth of a Bitcoin would have allowed you to live the rest of your life up there in what we would consider beyond opulence in today's world. And that was the whole message of this time traveler, supposedly, that came back talking about you need to destroy the Bitcoin, because that was the thing that interfaced you to be able to enjoy those luxuries in the Citadel. Which is interesting that he said that thing about they're going to pull back and live in their castles up there and interface with AI while everything crashes around down here. This bending of reality, you wonder, how much it's getting bent, because we're almost buying into it that it's set in stone that it's going to be this way. Perhaps it's not. Perhaps that's the mind screw right there, that all this control is really just like the Wizard of Oz. There is no control. But if they can get your mind to believe it is, they don't even have to send troops out on the streets. They can just do it through the news and the social media and fake the newscasts. And you'll oh, well, they're doing it. And you won't. And I've never seen any SWAT teams come down my streets. It's on the news every day. I haven't seen troop movements around my area, but it's on the news every day. It's almost like everything's generated electronically, fictitiously, and put out into the media in this reality bend of this, whatever it is, this patent that you're talking about, could be a systematic, step-by-step process to gaslight and brainwash an entire society through images, movies, all social media, on screen only, but nothing in the real world's happening in front. But they'll be terrified of what's coming out of the screen, so they'll give up their sovereignty, although nothing in the physical world is happening to them. It's all only in their heads on a screen. Because if you turn off your computer for 10 days and walk away from this, nothing will be, you won't see a thing except maybe some people wearing masks. And if you're out in the countryside, people don't wear masks. And in Florida, they're all stopping wearing the masks. So if you're in the countryside and you turn off your computer for 10 days, you will not even have known the world has changed since 2019. Except for maybe some conversation. But otherwise, that's it. Like in real world manifestation, like physical things in front of you, plopping around you, it's just not here. So I think this whole maybe reality patent that you're talking about only occurs on the screen to program the mind. Like that elephant, that baby elephant with the thing around its ankle, and then it learns through the life that it can't escape the ankle, and it's something very similar to this. And I'm glad you brought the patent up. I'm going to have to look more into that, Ransom.
They've been telling us, though, that they want a feudalistic society. And the AI, how you were just saying that it'll all be on TV or in their head or however they're connected. They wouldn't even see the troops. They could tell them where they were at. But the weird part is, did you see that virtual fireworks display from Seattle where they tried to, tell everybody, don't really look at the Space Needle, but tune in, via our YouTube channel and watch the virtual fireworks display. All kinds of people watched that. And then there was these people that lived by the needle and they were looking at it, and of course there's no lights happening there. But what if you weren't allowed around an area like the White House or something? So you couldn't actually see for yourself what was going on there, but they could broadcast what they said is going on there. And I'm showing kind of the viewers this everyday troop movement where I live along the border. Those are two Apache gunships, fully loaded. They have missile pods. They got a nice big machine gun on the front, and all kinds of armored vehicles. But you'd think it was the Army. But sometimes when I go out there, they're UN troops. And they have hatches from every country. You can see some armored vehicles with guns on them. These are troop carriers. There's an armored vehicle right there. I just kind of filmed that on the side of the road coming home from El Paso the other day. Pretty trippy goings-ons. But you're right about the, it might as well be a fake reality when you turn on everything. And what's so funny is they put it in the movie context as this outlandish, almost impossible thing, while the real thing is happening all around you right now. It's just doesn't have the blockbuster movie filters on it for you.
Yeah, because here's another mind-bending reality bit here. Now, if you have been watching sports, I'm not really a sports fan. I don't watch it, but my dad does. So when I'm walking in and out of the room, occasionally in the family room, if I'm back visiting on the weekend, or they come down to help me cut brush, and I'll go back on the weekend just to get back into a little bit of comfort while we're remodeling the cabin down here. Well, I noticed that in the very beginning of the canceling of events and whatever, they had 0 people in the stands, and it was almost like you were watching a practice warm-up game. Well, since that time, I've seen, the evolution where they're putting these paper cutouts in all the seats, and like every seat's full now, like it's almost a real game because there's people in every seat. Well, I was reading about this. Next season, they're going to be digitizing those people, where they're going to move from the paper cutouts that you see right now at sporting events into digitized stadium events. Because what I also noticed was, even though there were no live people in there, they were putting the background sounds in, like cheers and all that stuff you would expect to hear at any game.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, Dad, well, there's nobody even there. They put in the sound effects? And he's like, yeah, they put the sound effects in. So then I thought that was real interesting, and very like gaslighting and psychological operation to keep everybody still tuned into the sports, because it had the same buzzes and whistles and sounds and things that everybody was used to that got them excited about watching the games. But next year is going to be the big rollover when they digitize it. So you will not even know that there's nobody in the stadium. It will look as if it looked in 2015, 16 when people did go to the stadiums. And with the graphics being so good today, you will not even notice that it's not real. Same sounds, they'll dub the sounds over, of course. They'll have all the cheering fans, and they'll probably, find when there's touchdowns and just overlay that dub sound on top. But they're going to digitize the entire crowd, taking it to a whole new level. So when you talk about a fake reality, if they're taking it to a level to digitize thousands of people in a stadium every game, what else are they digitizing to make reality seem real, but it's not? It's total facade.
Yeah. And that's been, a couple of years ago, they had that Chinese broadcast with a AI broadcaster, and they were trying to pass it off as the realistic, you can't tell the difference. They can't get the eyes right yet, but whenever they put it at a distance with the filter, I don't see how you can tell. They've been practicing this for decades with the video games, and I've seen several examples of them doing that, where they'll just multiply the same person in the background. It looks real, it's moving around, but really it's just a little dude on a green screen, and you can add more of them. Actually, I could do that. It's not that hard. I've done it actually in some videos with some zombies, making them run around in a foreground. It's not hard. I've actually tried to show people that for some time now, probably a decade, the green screen technology and simulated artificial video has been excellent for a long time. And then you combine that with these learning machines, AIs, and some of that software, the deep fakes that take over someone's face and their voice, and you can make them say and do anything. So we do live in a time where you cannot believe what you see. Almost nothing that you could read, it's all written by an algorithm. Even the president's speeches, and I'm talking about the current and the last one, for a fact was using like at least 60% speeches written by an AI. So who's actually in charge? If our nuclear warheads are under the control of AI, which the military has admitted that they do use, just like that old movie War Games. And we really do have a thing called Skynet within the military, which is a bunch of ultra high drones that keep track and tabs on everybody. And all of the branches of the alphabets have their fingers in all of these technologies. So if you become a person that's unwanted or unliked, you get forget your credit score. What if they just make a movie showing you do bad stuff that you never did and you were never there? But try convincing the public especially when the new criminal system is where prisoners don't even go to a court. They just go to a camera, and some judge, maybe a real judge, presides over them over a telescreen there in front of them, and they just see this little dude in orange, and they're like, yeah, whatever, guilty. Strange new world. A brave new world. It's not, you got to be brave.
Well, that's the whole thing. The screen. They've taken all the human interaction out of the human into, you can visually see another human, but you're not interacting with them. See, that's the one way to break people down, because the resonance field's not going to be in sync with others. Because as we come through this change electromagnetically, and as our sun steps down, and then the second magnetic field's forming out in the outer solar system, the resonance ability of the human is going to increase, I think, manifestation capabilities, and it already is. So, and I really believe that, again, that this whole separation point right now that's happening is all part of these earth changes that would give us, the regular person, more abilities for co-creating in the physical realms, literally in the physical realms, but in the spiritual realms. When you say the duality of light and dark, anybody who could manifest on that energy level of light, on the exponential of what they could even 5 years ago. The whole key to that is groups of people, group meditation, group thought to manifest, groups coming together. I mean, it was powerful before, but where we sit right now magnetically, electromagnetically, and where we head every single day, strengthening into this new electromagnetic field out in the outer solar system, groups become not groups, but supercharged manifesting thought process units. This is the whole reason I really believe that we're being kept apart too. It's not because they care about your health. They care about themselves not being overtaken spiritually, and us manifesting a different reality that they can't control. Because you notice all this gaslighting, fake reality is happening now, and things are happening faster now, because that's what's supposed to happen with all these double magnetic fields, is we're going to manifest faster. So all these things you're seeing in the news and these articles, and see how fast it's going, is because people's psyches are manifesting this in real time on the planet, when we should be manifesting something completely different of love and light, and complete break away from centralized systems into our own communities. This is where we should be focused. And doing away with war, and doing away with central banking, and doing away with all this. It really started in 2019, and these around the world, people were becoming very organized to ask for change from central banks control. But as we get in these double electromagnetic fields, the more gaslight we get, the more it's manifesting in physical reality. And we need to twist that around. And my whole question is, we see everything nefarious happening. It's in your face, but what can we really do? Because 80% of the world is buying this hoax right now. And those are the 80% of the people manifesting it for the other 20% are like, this is a complete hoax. So how do you come back, and what kind of recourse can you take to stop this gaslight, fake screen illusion that's bending the reality right now? That's my question. I just don't have an answer for it. I'm always asking the question, but others don't have answers either. Maybe it's a combined thing that we can find an answer.
While you were, talking about that, we need groups. I was just looking at this article from Yahoo News. Off-road, off-grid, the modern nomads. Wandering America's backcountry. These guys already got it figured out right here. They probably won't be doing too much nomading because you won't be able to travel. But they've already perfected the art of not living in a house, not having an electrical grid. It's funny, a lot of people have a lot of tools, and they have a lot of pneumatic tools and other stuff like that, but they forget that all their compressors and all that stuff run off electricity. So if they don't have their own personal grid, they're not going to be using any of those fancy tools. But these guys have it figured out. And if you've traveled across America, you see these guys all the time in the Walmart parking lots, because they still got to get supplies and they still need some place to sleep that they don't get messed with. And believe me, you're not going to be able to drive up in Walmart or, go park at a Campgrounds of America or a rest stop if they've shut down society. You're going to have to be part of the system, and you're going to stick out like a sore thumb if you're one of these guys. However, on the good end, they know how to live off not much of nothing.
Yeah, you would be a target. Those of you with campers and that kind of thing, that's a huge target because they know you're carrying everything with you that you own pretty much, and there's an enormous amount of supplies on those things. Great to have to get out and be able to, it would buy you some time for sure to be able to pull off to a spot. Because on our land out here, we're making 2 different camper pads with 50-volt plug-ins. So in case that were to happen, we'll have 2 pads where you can roll up, even with a 56-foot rig, and then still park yourself here with the 50-volt plug-in. So that's 2 instant spots where you can come in. Already has a septic, water hooked up, electric ready to go. You just, like you would any RV park, you just come, plug and play, blink, blink, and you're already here. Like the safety that provides for us too is having other people around, but then the advantage and the safety it gives other people too on the run, that they know they can get out and get safe and have a place to plug in, have instant electricity, instant water, and instant sewage, where then they can rest easy that night. Within seconds they know that they're in a safe space. And I don't mean they're in a safe space, but I mean truly in a place they're not going to get messed with, because there'll be others around as well protecting property in a group setting. So good in one way. It's great to have that ability to get off and off-road and out of the way and buy yourself extra time and avoid the chaos and just keep on trucking. But at some point you're going to have to stop, and you probably want to stop somewhere friendly.
Do you know what's a weird idea? I don't know why I had it, but I'm sure you've read about genetic drift, where you get a kind of segregated group of individuals genetically, but for some reason or another, they start looking differently than the other people genetically related to them, because they start, like only dating somebody with a big nose, or, like some cultural thing changes. And then all of a sudden something else is attractive. I was thinking, what are people going to look like? Because you remember last time I was joking about the cartoon girl from the old cartoons, and she'd take off her I think it was like maybe a Middle Eastern mask, but it sure did resemble a medical mask. And she takes it off, and she's got these big old gnarly teeth, and then she starts chasing the guy. What are people going to look like when they're segregated to these little groups of genetics because of their political affiliations or reality beliefs or whatever it is that segregates them? Maybe, because I've been meeting a lot of people that, they're having a bunch of turmoil in their family groups and their friend groups over this mask idea, and also the vaccination idea. Wait till, there's all these arguments about other things like, oh my God, you're a right to bear arms person. Oh my God, you think you can say what you want to say. That's not how we do things anymore. But what are the groups of people going to look like that only have a limited amount of genetic, material? They're going to be bottlenecked groups of people that are going to start looking a specific way based on whatever, that group of people thought was attractive. What do you think about that? I mean, we're going into a weird era where there's just going to be so many splits in Homo sapiens sapien that we may have to come up with all kinds of words. There's now babies made out of 3 different people's DNA. We have, I'm sure, chimera type, human type creatures in some of these genetic labs, since they've admitted to making chimeras in their labs. And how far or how much they're human is undisclosed to the public. And then you also have these gene edited people now. You don't think China's the first ones that did it. And even if they were, do you think they did it for the first time when the guy admitted to the public that they changed the DNA of these children and that they were out there, and I read another article said they lost track of them. So who knows, in the future, you have a person that has 3 different people's DNA mixing with someone that was gene edited. You're no longer a human being. After a couple generations, you're a new species of simian ape, I guess, a genetically modified chimera. And then, add the idea of certain billionaires wanting to manipulate your DNA and switch it around for God knows what. What a world of diversity. Like Star Trek.
Well, you got to think, the looks are one thing, but breeding a human species to be more docile, you do the same thing if you're going to raise cattle, if you're going to raise chickens, especially, you want to get some breeds that aren't as, aggressive with children or as aggressive if you're going into the coop to get some eggs out. I mean, we do the same thing with dogs to breed them to be more aggressive, less aggressive, cattle. The animal species, the humans have been breeding. This time we're being bred. And again, I'm going to go back to Jupiter ascending because I think it's an off-planet or inner Earth type of society that's calling the shots on the surface here, and we are being farmed. Different farming techniques, and now for some reason the entire planet needs to be farmed the exact same way. Before it was, whatever you list as a government or a societal structure, that was the farming technique for that country or continent. But now everything's becoming completely homogeneous and all farming techniques are one. So those things about the chimera and all these different DNA blends happening, you got to realize that when they were born and when that happened, the magnetic fields were not where they're going to. The magnetic fields they were born into were very strong.
Yeah.
The sun was at its high magnetic field. There was no second magnetic field in the outer solar system. And these beings with different DNA structures, you have no idea how that's going to affect them because we have no idea how it's going to affect us, the regular double-stranded DNA, double helix person. When the magnetic field of the sun goes down, our magnetosphere goes off, an enormous amount of cosmic rays blast the planet, our magnetic field shifts and is morphing in itself. It's not going to flip, I don't think, but definite huge wanders in that. And then we have a second magnetic field forming in the outer solar system, all within these next 3 years. I'm wondering what's going to happen to their manifestation or superpower capabilities as well, because they might actually become superhuman when all these resonant frequency changes are here, along with the electromagnetics. Like our brains, that's why people are freaking out, and you're seeing all these crazy stories. It's starting to happen now with the magnetic effects on the human brain, the human physiology. But what's going to happen with that new class of human that you're describing? I'm very curious. Because think about everybody listening tonight, your manifestation capabilities are increasing exponentially by the day. Like the way you can manifest a physical object into your life is happening so fast right now. This is what the elite are terrified of. Human race coming together to manifest them out of our planet and off our realm and out of our vibrational field of sight for another 10,000 years, however long it is. Send them to the realms of darkness. Let us live in the light. And this is what we are capable of doing at this second. And that's why they want to keep us apart. But that other type of human you're talking about, I am curious, Ransom, what do you think with all the magnetic field shifts? You think that'll change them into something super superhuman's the way to go, because they've been brainwashing us with all these Marvel cartoon movies in the last few years, and I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
I actually don't think there will be two superhuman, even though China has admitted that they've gene edited some of their soldiers to be faster, stronger, et cetera, et cetera. However, we have no idea what the combinations are, or maybe someone does, and they know that these people that were born now aren't going to be really affected. But if they go out into the population and make a child, we know from genetic evidence of the past that, one female can spread genes down millions of generations probably. And think about, you're better with timelines than I am. Think about a while back, we had a new kind of blood show up. I think it's about 30 to 50,000 years ago, which is the Rh negative factor of bloods. And also there's a weird thing with the fact that a long time ago, they had this big brain event where supposedly there's anatomically correct humanoids walking around, and then bam, they're just big brain. We're doing art, we're doing making clothes, doing all this stuff. So something happened that changed them then, and a weird thing happened that changed history of all nations in all areas of the earth. At one time, somebody started farming, and genetic evidence shows that the people that moved across Europe and replaced the native Iberians and the native British or the Druids or whoever you want, they had a certain amount of genetics that just was there all the way. And then all of a sudden it just changed all the way over to 90% of genetics of the farmers that moved into the areas. So the dominant genes went with farming everywhere. And so did industry. And they proved that other places that never kind of achieved industrial type farming or farming knowledge, where they were, actively farming big areas of the earth, they never turned into societies. They pretty much stayed in a primitive state. So farming was the key to everything. But something happened to those people because of the, right before the gene change into farming, something gave them these ideas, something changed them over, a whole new thought process. And then, new things show up all of a sudden, including blood types. And then no one's ever explained why we're the only ape with 46 chromosomes when all of the other have 48. All of them. And all of the other apes, all of them, and primates, all have the ABO system, but none of them have the rhesus negative factor. So we know that new types of humans just pop up out of nowhere. And now that we're tinkering with it, do you think that was a similar time when all those changes happened? Because, we had Denisovan, we had Neanderthal, they were kicking it for hundreds of thousands of years, and then all of a sudden, bam, they're gone. But there's a new kind of dude around. And he's dominating, and he's farming.
Well, I'd refer back to Robert Felix's book, Evolutionary Leaps and Magnetic Reversals, because it lends a lot of credence to what you just described. Is we get these incredible cosmic ray bursts when the sun's at the primer field has collapsed on the sun. We're entering into a new ice age, or close to the precipice of entering into a new one. The magnetic field on the Earth shifts at the same time, and we get this incredible, massive amounts of cosmic rays coming in, and that affects everything on the planet. That's the reason there's gaps in the fossil record. And speaking of the timelines, the fossil record, maybe things occur faster than what we've been told in traditional science. The things that are hundreds of millions of years might not really be hundreds of millions of years. So you got to think about how long timelines really are in terms of, so they say the creation of coal takes, 300 million years, something. But then they still find green matter inside some of these coal veins down in there when they found folded up areas of the earth that actually folded in on themselves, where they'll break into a coal seam and they'll see an entire swamp or a forest turned upside down, just like you would fold over a sandwich. But inside there, some of the plants still, you can see tinges of green still in the leaves and tinges of green still on the branches. That should be impossible, literally impossible, if that was spending hundreds of millions of years underground. And some of these out-of-time artifacts as well. There's a whole list. There's list after list after list of all these out-of-time artifacts where they're finding things in the wrong layer of strata, where they might find a hammer, tooled steel hammer with a wooden handle on it that's in like an 80 million year old rock layer. That's literally impossible, but not if the timelines on how fast sediments solidify and how fast the geology processes are on the planet. And if you extend the human timeline out to 21 million years of human habitation on this planet, not just 400,000. So if you add those two factors together and then throw the third factor of the cosmic ray bombardment in there, hey, we got a whole bunch of things in this soup for a new discussion, because what is reality, really? I mean, how much of the world is known except for what you're told by the gatekeepers of the Smithsonian Institute, the Vatican, Nova? It's a very tiny amount of institutions out there that dictate what the timelines are. And you see this again and again. Graham Hancock comes out with this book talking about fingerprints of the gods back in the day. This is the early 90s, before there was a lot of research going on with individuals. And as soon as he put that out there, no, that can't be true. We're the experts. You don't know anything. And sure enough, it turned out to be true. So this whole gatekeeping of knowledge as well is a hindrance to any movement forward for society, because when people start to find anomalies like these artifacts in the wrong layer of rock, for example, you can't discuss it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Pyramids of Bosnia, are they real? Are they not? Not sure. But why do they stop all the digs? Every single archaeological excavation there was stopped. Why? What did they not want them to find? And you find this over in Indonesia too. What's that? Gunung Padang. They found all these, they used ground penetrating radar. They found a full layer under that would be at least 60,000 years old of a new temple city under there. And nope, all the archaeological discovery, they got to stop the dig, can't have it. So many times there are discoveries being found that will buck the timelines that we're fed and given right now. It is always stopped. And you know who's pushing the head with the spear of the tip on that is always the archaeological divisions of a country that stop the digs. And they're all right. And where do they all funnel back to? Oh, National Geographic and these types of institutions.
Yeah.
And anytime something's found, it goes right into those same hands as well, and it's never shown to the public. So, what's being discovered, what's being hidden. And there's a lot of things, there's different ingredients and different levels on this that could describe why new blood types have popped in. Cosmic ray bursts. It goes on and on. It goes deep, and I'm willing to go that deep because I think there's way more hidden history. And the reason I'm so into it right now is we're coming back to this precipice within the next 3 years of all these changes that have shaped everything you're talking about. In the next 3 years is when it in earnest begins. I mean, they're trying to lock and stop the upgrade and the expansion of us right now happening. So this duality of like good and evil, light and dark, whatever it is, it's in actuality a no BS assessment trying to stop the expansion of our consciousness by locking us down through darkness and nefarious means. I really believe that. This time we should be expanding as the human race to the next level of existence, and this planet as well upgrading itself in energetic frequency. And they're trying to stop the shift of us upgrading into a new frequency. This is what is really irking me a lot here on this planet right now. It's not about the control thing with the money. It's about they're stopping the evolution of humanity itself. The evolution of spirit is what they are against. And that is, in my opinion, darkness. I'll stop there, man. I'm going to ramble.
No, I kind of agree with you. And let me tell you how possible it is. I'm not too much of a scientist, but my layman's understanding.
You are, man. You have some of the best research I've seen on the petroglyphs. You're amazing.
But when we started exploding nuclear devices out around the Bikini Islands, there's a species of shark that lives there, and it had a big dorsal fin. It looked like a normal shark. It was like a reef shark or something like that. But anyway, a whole generation of that species of shark had the gene deleted for the dorsal fin on it. But sharks are kind of resistant to mutation. So it just kind of going on, living its life like nothing ever happened. And that happened most likely in one generation. So there was a group of sharks. They were a certain way. All of their children were now a new type of shark. Now, the same thing could happen with humans, in my opinion, especially when you kind of bring in this idea of cosmic rays. So one day I'm standing outside, just for example, like a little example of the way I think it might happen. is that, me or a group of people are outside and we get a cosmic burst of some kind from some star or maybe our star, and something happens to our DNA right there. Maybe a piece gets shredded, maybe some letters get rearranged. And then in one generation, there's a new type of kid that's born. It didn't take 5 generations. There's no missing fossil link. There's no, animal between A and B. There's only A and B. It went from A to B to be in a different kind of animal altogether. And I think we're going to witness that right now. I think it's been happening in front of our eyes. The terrifying part is that they know that too. The powers that be know that things work like this too. They know the cycles. They have the hidden knowledge way more than we do. So if something like this was happening, they would know it. They would probably go around and take everybody's DNA and collect it and find out who's susceptible to mutation, who carries certain diseases. Because, there's an odd thing about human beings is that we have all of these thousands of mess ups in our DNA code. And every one of those mess ups shouldn't exist through the process of natural selection. The weak and the disease should have died off. The childhood diseases should have never had children that passed on these genes. But however, here we are, and we do have like 4,000 different disorders that shouldn't exist in our genetic code. And then on top of the conundrum of where did our 46 chromosomes come from when all of the other of our type allegedly through evolution have 48. There is one guy in China that has 44. And who knows, maybe if he mates, there'll be a new type of human there in a natural way. They don't even know why or how he has 44 chromosomes, but he's a normal dude. You wouldn't be able to tell any difference on the street, but he is a new type of human. So if you ever found another person with 44 chromosomes and they had children, there would be totally a brand new type of Homo something. We're in
Homo fall. All right. And you've been listening to Ransom Godwin 420 TV Freedomist Films and myself, David DuByne. We're coming to the end of the hour here. What do you think about all these changes that are happening? I would love to hear your opinions. Leave a link in the description box on Ransom's channel here, and also in the comment box in the station here on the chat board. But as we move in through the next weeks, keep a positive, light about these changes. Are all about the light, and we've been known that this is coming for thousands of years. This duality at this point, where we're all going to be part of the change into something upgraded, is the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
But, venues like this, free speech on air, continue to support freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio, both Studio A and B. If you go to freedomslips.com, it's like 5 different ways you can support the channel, from the merch to the direct, deposit in the checks. You can support on Patreon, and there's so many ways to do that. Because as we do march forward every single week, you see these communication channels getting constricted more and more. And I really believe that this is going to be one of the last places on the net for us to be able to communicate. And this might be great if this is our primary communication channel, much like a ham radio. Because I do believe that the staff is going to try to keep this up and rocking and rolling as long as we still can get bandwidth to communicate. So if you are going to spend any money that you think will make a difference moving forward, right here is where you want to put it. Because, the social media sphere, you can waste your money there, but put it somewhere where it's going to be used for some good. And I think this is it right here, this platform. So as we take it through the next week, please start manifesting on making something different and better. And we'll see you next week. Ransom, thanks for joining. Talk to you later, man.
Later. Awesome sauces. What's up, Green Gregs? What's up, Perry Scott? Steven Stiffers. Sorry. Steffers. Connie, what's going on? Living in the field. How do you get internet there? Is it Wi-Fi? No, I don't know what the stupid selection is for Wi-Fi. I'm sorry. I'll try to figure it out. Somebody else came in here one night and was mad about the no rewind. And they were like saying they were going to tell on me and get me in trouble with David. I'm sorry. Leave the comment in the chat box if you're an experienced YouTuber and help me out. Anyway, that's all I got for 420 TV tonight. I am trying to get back into the habit of doing shows, but I just have so much stuff I keep not doing it. But I'm trying. I've got a lot of stuff going on. I'm trying to branch out and make more stuff happen this year. Manifesting. And did I tell you about my little sprouts outside? My little experiment of winter farming? There's little bitty food things growing under my plastic buckets because they're getting a miniature greenhouse effect. And I got a bunch of onions and garlic that I'm really looking forward to blowing up in the spring. And I'm a new dad. And there's babies crying sometimes. So, whoa. Anyway, peace out, 420 TV. The time is 4:20 and the weather is partly cloudy. At least I hope it is where you are. Peace.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
If I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness. And I'd have a third of its real estate, 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. Thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of the serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve. Do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington, And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flame. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. What'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
the devil.